and welcome back to Survivor Hot Takes. It is me, Coach Drew, aka Twice a Fool, which everyone understands. If not, JD. He had his moment in the sun at the beginning of the episode where he said he was not going to be fooled twice, and as we found out later, we're joined today by Ryan. Ryan, jumping right into you, biggest reality or biggest Survivor hot take.
My biggest Survivor hot take, probably in general, is that the edit is always correct. That's something I don't think a lot of people understand.
Do you want to go into a depth about what that means?
Sure. I feel like oftentimes people blame the edit for portraying inaccurate stories, but I feel like at the end of the day, the edit does a very good job of telling us exactly what's going on the island, and I guess not really manufacturing any additional story that isn't there. People say that like, oh, when we see edits, especially unbalanced edits, sometimes, a lot of people who are actually playing really good games don't get the stories showcased. But at least in my opinion, the edit isn't about showing the viewers why each individual person deserves to win. It's about showing us event by event what's happening out on the island. So just because someone may be in a great position doesn't mean that they're necessarily important to the narrative of the season.
Okay. I mean, I feel like I would agree with that more than I would disagree with it. I'm also pretty sure I've done an episode on it. I'm not sure. I've done a lot of these up to this point, or a fair few. So going into the episode, first of all, now we're a few episodes into the season. How are you enjoying it up to this point?
Well, up to this point, especially after last episode, I started to, I guess, regain hope because, like, the first couple episodes, the premiere, I was very mixed about immediately after watching, and then we episode 2 with Wojciech on. Obviously, I was upset about that, and then episode 3, Broccoli Brad and the Advantage get in. I really started to get a bit discouraged after that, to be honest, because I was like, is this what Survivor's become now? But then after last episode, I really started to regain a lot of hope again. So I'm really, I guess I guess I can say it's like a really big roller coaster thus far.
Yeah, I would say this is probably my favorite episode of the season,
Definitely.
except for the premiere. But the premiere is probably going to be most people's favorite episode of the season until the merge, mainly because it was the premiere of 41 and everything that came with that. But this has definitely been my favorite episode of the season up to this point. And, the main narrative of this episode is everything dealing with JD and everything dealing with Deshawn trying to throw the challenge, which we'll get to in a little bit. So, what are your thoughts on JD at the beginning of the episode? So do you figure JD is going home at the beginning of this episode, or do you think, okay, this is just kind of, they're trying to trick us here with, or how were you feeling about JD up to this point? And did you think he was going home?
Well, to be honest, I feel like, in my opinion, JD was put in a pretty bad position, but I feel like instead of making things better for himself, he actively made it worse. At the beginning of the episode, I knew that if Uwa lost another challenge, it was going to be either him or Genie. And then as the episode went on, he just continually made more and more mistakes. It became clear that it was his time to go.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of people online love Chantel. I'm a big Chantel fan. And watching her play him the entire episode, but even if you want to go back to the end of the last episode where she basically guilt tripped him, out of that advantage, and then he's trying to go off on her this time, and she's like, "Oh no!" Like she flips it on him. I think that she's doing really good for herself. I just feel like she could potentially upset the wrong people, aka a jury. But that's down the line. What I'm more focused on with this JD situation is I feel like this is going to be the next Jeff Probst is going to make fun of you for the next 20 years type moment.
Yeah.
Just because they purposely put that confessional at the beginning of the episode where it's, fool me once, fool me twice. And, for his storyline to end up being fooled twice, I don't know. I feel like they were definitely trying to say, "Hey, look, isn't this funny? Don't you guys
Yeah.
want to see this clip every reunion for the next 10 to 20 years? Because we're gonna do it no matter what." Um, and JD seems like a big enough fan that he probably would take it on the nose. I hope so, because I didn't think that he was a trash player. The way,
No.
however he was describing it in his confessionals, he didn't want to be looked at as like a moron. And I don't think he is. I just think that he made this blunder based off, this relationship that he has with Shan. So do you think that this blunder is going to be what JD is known for in the Survivor community for the rest of time, or do you think it's going to be earlier things?
I feel like in terms of just JD as a player, this is going to be like his monumental move. This is what people are going to remember him for, if anything. I mean, I feel like in the grand scheme of things, it's never going to overshadow Eric giving away immunity. That's what
No.
everyone's comparing it to right now. It's never going to overshadow that. Jeff is always going to talk about that more, I feel like. But in terms of JD himself, yeah, whenever someone mentions JD, that's what they're going to bring up. And it's just a tragedy of how it goes. Another fan just ruining their opportunity to be one of the greats.
Yeah, and his exit confessional was very um civil. He makes the comment about his hair at the end of it.
Yeah.
And I'm interested to see, you know, if they even bring if they do a reunion, if they bring it up much during it, or if they just kind of let it go and focus on other things that he did during the show, which is, you know, basically the advantages that he found.
Yeah.
So if we flip it on the other side, with Genie, how did you feel about her basically not giving up, but just saying, "Oh, I'm not going to work with the, I'm at the bottom, so screw you guys." Do you think that's a smart thing? Because it's not the first time we've seen it happen ever, and every time people do it, it's like, how do they think this is the
Yeah.
right way to go about things? And she doesn't go home, so I guess it worked to some degree. But what do you think about that as far as a strategy that people have in the game, or not a strategy?
Well, I feel like when she acted that way, I don't really think that was for strategy. I mean, I feel like after, obviously when after you're blindsided, you're upset. I think she was just acting like in the moment. And I'm sure by the next day, as like Ricard said, when Nathan came over and they're all having so much fun, I think she got over it by then. So I think it was just that night. But in terms of strategy, I mean, if I were to do that, that's something I would not do. I would not like alienate myself because I was on the wrong side of the vote. But I feel like that didn't really help her anyways, but it didn't exactly like cost her as well. So I think it all worked out.
Okay. And then with Shan, do you think that we're getting too much Shan right now for it to be, or people might suffer through Shan fatigue, or even worse, we're getting too much Shan right now, which makes it seem like, oh, she's not going to win because we're getting so much of her pre-merge? Or do you just, I'm like I keep saying, I'm not a person that tries to read the edit or whatever, but it's kind of hard not to when she is very clearly being shown to us weekly. Do you think that we're getting the right amount of her, or do you think it's setting up for her to eventually be the vote out right before the merge, or merge boot, or something like that?
Well, I think we're not getting too much of Shan, but I think everything we're getting from Shan is that she's doing everything right thus far. So I think people are sticking it down and saying, oh, she's the obvious winner. I feel like they're building her up to be a very big contender in the post-merge. I don't see her going next. I think it's going to be Genie if they go back to Tribal again. But I think
it would have to be, right? Like, it has to be Genie. It has to be Genie if they go back. Not that I want Genie gone or anything. It's just, it has to be her next. So moving on to what's going on on the other side of the island, let's say. Deshawn decides that he wants to play ball with Sydney, right?
Yeah.
And what happens from there?
Well, pretty much Deshawn catches wind of Erica's idea to try to blindside Sydney, and so he basically says, let's just throw the challenge to get rid of Erica so that I can keep my girl Sydney safe and we'll have the majority. which I think was a horrible idea, anyways. But we'll get into that.
Oh no, yeah. I'm, much like was stated in the episode. I am not a big fan of throwing anything, coming from a kind of athletic background. I'm not into losing on purpose, but I also understand that it is a sometimes solid strategy to do in the game of Survivor. And it seems like pretty much everyone was on board, or at least a majority of them were on board for this challenge. And then King Nasir shows up and saves the day. And once again, we don't always get a lot of Nasir, but they always make sure to put some type of focus on Nasir in every episode when they're dealing with that tribe. Which leads me to believe that Nasir is also going to be a bigger character as the season progresses. And I keep flip-flopping on if I'm a Nasir fan or not. This week I definitely was, just because I'm a Deshawn fan, and when I found out he was trying to throw the challenge, I'm like, all right, well, I'm done with you for the week. I'm on Team Nasir now. And so what is your opinion on throwing challenges? Do you think there's more benefit to it? And how do you... Because they portrayed it in a lot different way this episode than they've portrayed people throwing challenges in the past.
Yeah.
So how did you feel about how they were trying to throw the challenge in this episode compared to the past? And how do you feel about throwing challenges just in general?
Well, I feel like in general, it always just depends on the situation. Oftentimes in a caramel situation, when Brandon's pouring out the beans and rice, I understand at that point where you have to involuntarily give up immunity. But I feel like in general, it's always a bad idea, because you're just delaying. You're just not delaying. Just, I don't know how to say it. Like, you're just speeding up the process of elimination. Like, why not win this one, and then if you lose the next one, then you can get rid of Erica. There's no point of speeding it up and getting rid of her now, because then what if you lose the next one? Then you're kind of like, well, there's our free token. Now we're screwed. So I feel like in this particular instance, it was portrayed more as like a better strategic decision, like a mastermind Deshawn moment, as opposed to like a dumb idea that, as we're watching at home, we're like, no, don't do that. I feel like this was something that a lot of fans could like get behind.
Yeah, I wasn't one of them, but
No.
I understood his rationale. I did, even though Sydney's a weird hill to die on from where I'm sitting. Like, oh, I need to tell Sydney this, or else like Erica's going to take full control. It's like, all right, Deshawn, I don't know what you're playing at, but whatever. So we get to the third part of the challenge with the ring toss. I think that's the third part. It's the ring toss. And Deshawn's doing a great job at blowing this challenge. And then once again, Nasir just comes to save the day. And at that point in the challenge, do you think that do you think that JD could potentially still pull it out? Or are you like, at this point, Nasir's got this, JD's probably going home?
Well, at that point, I thought JD was going to close it out. I mean, I knew Nasir was an animal, but I didn't know he was that strong. But I thought someone would try to take over from him eventually. I thought Deshawn was going to try to step in, but like, no, it's okay, I got this. But then they just let him kind of go, and that's when Nasir just got in his flow, and it was unstoppable from that point. So,
so what happens next for that tribe? Do you think that, do they say, okay, well, we couldn't blow it this time, maybe that's a sign that we should probably just keep going? Or do you think that they will try to do this again later on? And do you think it would be smart for them to try to lose again, even though like it might not have been obvious out there to everyone else? People aren't dumb that are out there, and they could probably figure out if all of a sudden we're starting to like really slacken challenges, that there's something might be up. Do you feel that they will try it again, or do you think they'll just kind of let it ride now?
Well, I feel like between this episode and next episode, I'm sure tribe dynamics are also going to change a lot. It's going to play into it, and I'm sure at least someone's probably going to catch wind of what was going on. Obviously not Nasir, but I feel like Deshawn's the type of person to run his mouth and let it slip. That he might tell someone else. I don't know, but I think they're not going to try to throw it again. And if they do and they're successful, who knows? Maybe Deshawn will be the next victim. But I doubt they would do it again.
Based off of this episode, like, cool he can go. But like I mentioned this a couple times over the past few weeks. I am a Deshawn guy. But it was just kind of unfortunate to see things go the way that they did this episode. And kind of to bring things, full circle not even full circle, we're kind of going backwards. The reward challenge.
Oh
yeah. First of all,
like
it was nice to have a reward challenge back.
Yes.
I'm not a big reward challenge person, but it was nice to have that back for at least 1 week. They can go away again now. What did you think about it? What do you think about not having reward challenge, or at least them showing reward challenges now? And what did you think of the whole ending segment of that?
Well, I mean, reward challenges in general, I feel like they're like a staple of the show. I feel like you can't just take that away forever. And even in a season where Jeff is so, all in with the whole, this is the hardest season yet, we're giving them nothing. I feel like a reward challenge maybe every other episode, but just something very meager. Like the fish, that was perfect. That was a perfect reward, because in the long run, is the fish really going to help the tribe? No, but it gives them hope, So I feel like that's something good to have. The end segment with Heather, man, I was not a fan of that. I really did not like that.
Why didn't you not like that?
Well, I feel like, I don't know. I feel like the cast was really hypocritical. Like when JD's messing up in the challenges, everyone's like, "No, JD, no NBA style, no style points. You suck. You messed it up for us." And then when Heather's like, can't even get past the first part, everyone's like, "It's okay. You did your best." And it's just like, it felt.
Do you think because she's an older lady has anything to do with it, or?
I think that has absolutely everything to do with it.
So I didn't hate the segment. Once again, I feel like it was the show trying to recapture moments that have happened in the past. Just to say, hey, you remember when this happened? It's kind of similar back in like season 34 or whatever. We did it again. Now let's get those tears rolling for the people at home. But people at home I feel like they're aware of what the show is trying to do. Yeah. And I feel like a lot of people probably sat at home saying, okay, like you, just like, okay, we get it. Like she failed and, it's a big moment for her. And this is not me underselling her continue to try, because that is awesome that she did. It's just, I felt like they were trying to pander once
Absolutely.
again.
Yeah.
Which there's inherently nothing wrong with. It's just that I feel like they're trying too hard in certain situations. Yeah. If this is going to be a new era of Survivor, by all means, do a new era of Survivor. But that means stop trying to call back to things that have happened in the past. And I know you're a Ghost Island person, so I don't know how you feel about them continuing to call back to things in the past. But if they continue to do it, it's like, okay, you guys want us to, hop on board this new era. Stop bringing up things that have happened in the past. The past is the past. I was so scared that because he kept saying, "Oh yeah, we're gonna have somebody back at camp that like
I thought Cochran was gonna show up
and like blah blah blah." And I'm like, "Oh, I thought it was gonna be Adam Klein," and I'm like, "Oh, they're gonna bring some." And I like Adam Klein, but for the record, I thought they were going to get back and it's going to be an old Survivor player there. And it's going to be like, oh, really? We're honestly going to do this after you keep telling us this is new. This is new. Don't bring back an old Survivor for, a challenge. Bring him back for another season. I'm still cool with waiting for another All-Star season for another 3 to 4 seasons. But I was so scared they were going to come back from commercial. And because they didn't go straight to their tribe first after commercial, I thought they're gonna build it up. It's gonna be this. Yeah. It's gonna be, and then they just cut to it, and it's just Nathan in a tree. It's like, all right.
I thought it was Nasir at first. I was like, wait, is it Nasir?
It's like it's just Nathan in a tree. I'm like, okay, is he gonna come down? And they're like, no, this isn't the only person. It's like, oh god. Yeah. But I did enjoy that it was just some local named Nathan who climbs trees weird. And I'm hoping that as the season progresses, and I know I've said this pretty much every week, I'm hoping that they, try to separate themselves from the first 40 seasons. Not all the way. That's never going to happen all the way like that. But, to a point where only because they've been telling us this, they want us to do this. So like, do it. We didn't have any. The storylines weren't built around advantages for the most part this episode, like you said at the beginning. Thank the Lord, because I almost went on like a longer tirade than I did last week. And I'm hoping that could potentially continue, but I have a feeling that this episode is just going to be advantage. Yeah, it's going to be even more advantages. So I guess as we wrap things up, first of all, who is your winner pick?
My honest winner pick as of right now, honestly, I have to go with Deshawn as well.
Okay. Yeah, I'm thinking, I'm leaning Deshawn or Nasir. Starting like this episode really was just like, wow, like Nasir, like I keep saying, he's not shown a lot, but there's always something. There's always something with Nasir. And so I would say Deshawn or Nasir for right now. For all we know, it could be Tiffany, and we're all just, dumb. But overall, I'm still enjoying it. I'm excited for the episode, even though I'm not watching the episodes live because of practice. Whenever avoiding spoilers on Twitter is very hard. Avoiding spoilers on Instagram is even harder, and then Facebook. My God, like people are just immediately sharing memes, and I'm just like, I don't know what this means, but I need to get past it. And so I'm hoping that as our season hopefully slowly starts to wrap up, it'll coincide with when the merge happens, and I can dedicate my time to just watching the show and figuring out what happens from there. But Ryan, thank you so much for coming on to the show. Any final thoughts on the season, where you think it's going to go, any players in particular, or...
Well, I think they're doing a really good job at building up a lot of the big contenders that we're going to be seeing. Like in the first 2 episodes, it was all Evie, and now we haven't seen much of Evie. So I'm pretty sure people are wondering, oh, what's happening with her? Or, they're building up Shan, they're building up Deshawn, they're building up all these people that I think it's going to make for a really interesting post-merge. And as long as it isn't too overridden by advantages, I think it's going to be really enjoyable to watch.
I agree. I think that if they just kind of let the advantages just go. Like, everyone does not need an advantage at the merge. And based off the preview, it looks like, God, please, no more. I can't deal with it. But we're going to wrap things up there. Ryan, thanks again for coming on. We will be back next week. And hopefully I won't be angry. Hopefully it'll be another good episode, and we'll have Ryan back later on in the season post-merge, and hopefully both of our winner picks, our current winner picks, because mine was Abraham, are still here. And until then, we will see y'all on the other side.